Bertha Russell fought her way to the top of New York society, and just when it looked like nothing could touch her, her own marriage started slipping through her fingers. George walked out after that ball, and even though we all know these to have survived worse, something about season 4 feels different this time. The synopsis says Bertha changed society at a cost, and her family has to reckon with the consequences. So what if this time, the cost is bigger than anyone expected? What if George's silence isn't just another rough patch, but the beginning of something Bertha can't fix with one of her famous power moves? Stick around, because I'm breaking down everything we know about the trailer, the release date, and why Bertha's marriage might be facing its toughest test yet. Now let's really dig into Marian, because I think her storyline in season 4 is going to surprise a lot of people who have written her off as just the sweet, naive girl who can't seem to get her life together. If you go back and watch the moment when Dr. Kirkland was working to save George's life, Marian wasn't standing off to the side wringing her hands like she has in past emergencies. She was calm, she was focused, she was handing over instruments and following instructions like she had been doing it for years. And honestly, that scene changed the way I see her character completely. It wasn't just that she helped save George, it's that she seemed to come alive doing it. There was a version of Marian in that room that we hadn't really seen before, someone capable, someone useful. Someone who wasn't just waiting around for Larry to figure out his feelings or for society to decide whether she belonged. And I think that feeling, that sense of purpose, is exactly what the synopsis is hinting at when it says Marian forges a new path for herself. So what does that path actually look like? My guess is that this experience is going to push her towards some kind of role in medicine or caregiving. Whether that's formally training as a nurse, assisting Dr. Kirkland more permanently, or finding some other way to be involved in that world. And here's where it gets interesting, because New York in this era was not exactly throwing open the doors for women who wanted careers, especially not women from Marian's social circle. She's an orphaned woman who has always relied on the charity and guidance of her aunts. And now she might be looking at a future that has nothing to do with finding a husband and everything to do with finding purpose. That is a massive shift, and I don't think everyone around her is going to support it right away. Think about how her aunts might react. Agnes has spent years trying to marry Marian off, trying to secure her future the traditional way. And if Marian suddenly announces she wants to pursue something like nursing, I can already picture the shock on Agnes's face. Ada might be more supportive, given her general softness toward Marian, but even she might struggle to understand why Marian would want to give up the safety of a proper marriage for something so uncertain. And then there's Larry. This is where things get complicated, because Larry has already proven that he can be slow to catch up with what Marian actually wants. He's the one who let a lie spiral out of control and created this whole rift between them in the first place. And now imagine him watching Marian step into a version of herself that doesn't necessarily need him to complete her. Would Larry be threatened by that? Would he try to talk her out of it, thinking he's protecting her, when really he's just afraid of being left behind? Or does he finally grow up enough to admire her for it and support her no matter what it means for their relationship? I want to believe it's the second option, especially because we know their endgame is still intact. But I think the show is going to make us wait and squirm a little before we get there. There's also the question of timing. If Marian starts building this new identity for herself, does that mean her reunion with Larry gets pushed even further down the road? Because right now, based on everything we've seen, these two are still not officially back together. And every time it feels like they're close, something pulls them apart again. Adding a completely new ambition into Marian's life could either be the thing that finally makes Larry realize what he's been taking for granted, or it could be one more obstacle standing between them. Either way, I think this storyline is going to be one of the most emotionally rich parts of season 4, because it's not just about romance anymore. It's about Marian figuring out who she is outside of who she's supposed to marry. Now, let's shift over to Peggy, because her storyline is heading somewhere just as tense, just in a completely different way. The synopsis tells us that Peggy works to be accepted by her future in-laws, and if you've been paying attention to William's mother, you already know this is not going to be easy. William has been an absolute rock through everything, standing up to his own mother, ignoring every whisper and rumor about Peggy's past, and choosing her again and again without hesitation. But loyalty from William isn't the same as acceptance from his mother. And that's the wall Peggy is going to be facing head-on in Season 4. Here's what worries me a little. William's mother doesn't strike me as the kind of person who changes her mind easily. She has her own ideas about who her son should marry, her own standards, her own biases. And I don't think Peggy proving herself through kindness or patience alone is going to be enough to break through that. So what happens when Peggy realizes that no matter what she does, no matter how hard she tries, some people are simply never going to give her a fair chance? Does she keep pushing, hoping to eventually wear down the resistance? Or does she reach a point where she stops trying to earn approval from someone who was never going to give it and decides that William's love is enough on its own? I have a feeling the show is going to lean into that second idea because it fits so well with everything we already know about Peggy's character. She has never been someone who begs for acceptance. She has fought for her place as a writer. She has fought for her independence. And I think Season 4 is going to show her fighting for her right to be loved without needing to prove her worth to people who were never going to see it anyway. That said, I don't think this storyline is going to be resolved quickly or easily. Expect tension at family gatherings. Expect passive-aggressive comments dressed up as politeness. And expect William caught right in the middle trying to defend the woman he loves without completely alienating his own mother. It's a delicate balance, and I think the writers are going to milk every bit of discomfort out of it before giving us any kind of resolution. And honestly, I kind of love that, because Peggy and William deserve a storyline with real stakes, not just a quick and easy path to a happy ending. Now, stepping outside the official synopsis for a moment, I have to talk about John and Bridget, because even though the network hasn't mentioned them directly, I refuse to believe they're getting cut out of Season 4 after that visit Bridget paid to John. If you watched that scene and didn't feel your heart do a little flip, I don't know what to tell you. These two have had feelings for each other for what feels like forever. Dancing around it, being too shy or too uncertain to just say what they're feeling. And finally, we got a real moment of connection between them. I think Season 4 is going to lean into that slow burn even more, giving us small moments, subtle glances, maybe a stolen conversation here and there that builds towards something bigger. It might not be the flashiest storyline on the show, but for those of us who have been rooting for them from the very beginning, I think it's going to feel incredibly rewarding. So between Marian stepping into a whole new identity, Peggy fighting a battle that might never fully be won, and John and Bridget finally inching toward each other, Season 4 is shaping up to be an emotional roller coaster for almost every character we care about. And we haven't even gotten to what all of this means for Bertha and George's future, or what Agnes might be planning behind the scenes now that she's found her opening. That's coming up next, so stay with me. Let's talk about Agnes Van Rijn, because I don't think enough people are paying attention to just how dangerous this moment is for Bertha. Agnes has spent years watching Bertha take over New York society, watching her throw parties bigger than anyone else's, watching her force her way into old money circles that used to be completely closed off to people like the Russells. And through all of it, Agnes has had to sit back and accept that the world she once ruled has quietly slipped away from her. So when the synopsis tells us that Agnes seizes an opportunity to regain her position, I don't think that's a small detail. I think that's one of the biggest threats Bertha is going to face all season. Think about what Bertha just did. She invited divorced women to her ball, women that society has spent decades shunning. And while that move might have felt bold and powerful in the moment, it also gave every single person who resents Bertha a brand new reason to turn against her. Agnes doesn't need to manufacture a scandal here. Bertha handed her one on a silver platter. All Agnes has to do now is quietly plant doubts in the right ears, remind people of their old values, and position herself as the voice of tradition standing against Bertha's reckless modernization of society. That's exactly the kind of slow, calculated move Agnes is good at. She's not going to come at Bertha directly with accusations or confrontations. That's not her style. Instead, I think we're going to watch her work behind the scenes, hosting her own gatherings, whispering just enough doubt into conversations, and waiting patiently for cracks in Bertha's carefully built empire to widen on their own. And here's the thing, Bertha is not going to see this coming the way she should, because right now, her attention is split. She's dealing with George's silence, she's trying to figure out how to repair her marriage, and she's watching her children navigate their own complicated relationships. Agnes thrives in moments exactly like this, when Bertha is distracted, because that's when society is most vulnerable to being reshaped without Bertha's iron grip controlling every outcome. Now let's get back to George for a moment, because I think his headspace in season 4 is going to be far more complicated than just simple anger at his wife. Remember, this is a man who nearly died. He faced his own mortality head-on, and moments like that tend to shift how people see their entire lives. I think George is going to spend a good part of this season quietly reevaluating what actually matters to him. Is it the empire Bertha has built? Is it his standing in society? Or is it simply peace, family, and the people he loves being safe and happy around him? I have a feeling George's priorities are shifting in a direction Bertha isn't fully prepared for. Bertha operates in a world where power and position are everything, where every decision is a chess move designed to build a legacy that will outlast them both. George, especially after his health scare, might be starting to care less about legacy and more about simply living well in the time he has left. That's a fundamental difference in philosophy. And if it doesn't get addressed honestly between them, I think it's going to keep causing friction long after this particular fight blows over. Now here's where the trailer comes in, because even without an official release date locked in yet, the footage we've gotten small glimpses of paints a picture of tension simmering just beneath the surface in almost every scene. There are looks exchanged between Bertha and George that feel loaded, quiet moments that feel heavier than any shouting match could be. And that tells me the show isn't going to rely on big dramatic blow-ups to tell this story. Instead, I think season 4 is going to lean into that slow burn tension, the kind where you're constantly waiting for something to snap. And when it finally does, it's going to hit twice as hard because of how long the pressure has been building. As for when we'll actually get to see all of this play out, here's what we know so far. The Gilded Age was renewed for season 4 back on July 28th. And what's wild is that this renewal happened before season 3 had even finished airing, which tells you just how confident HBO is in the show's staying power. On top of that, HBO included The Gilded Age in their lineup of shows coming in 2026, which all but confirms we are getting new episodes within the year. Now, an official release date hasn't been locked in publicly yet, but based on the pattern of previous seasons and how production timelines have worked out before, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more concrete details drop in the coming months. The moment there's an official announcement, I'll be here breaking it down for you. So make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss it. But let's get back to the emotional core of this season, because I think what makes The Gilded Age so compelling isn't just the corsets and the ballrooms. It's watching these characters wrestle with what they actually want versus what society expects of them. Bertha wants love and legacy at the same time, and she's about to learn the hard way that you can't always have both without sacrifice. George wants peace, but he also can't fully let go of his pride, especially after feeling so disrespected by Bertha's decision to act without him. And somewhere in the middle of all this tension between the two of them, their children are watching, learning, and forming their own opinions about what marriage and partnership are supposed to look like. Larry and Gladys have grown up watching their parents build an empire together, but they've also seen the cost of that ambition up close. I think that's going to shape how both of them approach their own relationships moving forward. Whether that's Larry finally being honest and vulnerable with Marion, Or Gladys continuing to find her own quiet strength within her marriage now that she's carved out happiness on her own terms. So as we head into season 4, every single relationship on this show is being tested in some way, but none more publicly, none more dangerously than Bertha and George's marriage. Because if the Queen of New York society can't hold her own household together, what does that say about everything else she's built? That's the question I think this season is really asking. And I can't wait to see how they answer it. Let's shift focus to Larry for a moment, because I think his arc in season 4 deserves way more attention than people are giving it right now. Larry has spent so much of this show being the golden boy, the charming son who seems to have everything figured out, but underneath that surface, he's actually been one of the most conflicted characters when it comes to honesty and vulnerability. Remember, this is a man who let a lie about Marion spiral completely out of control instead of just being upfront with her from the start. And that single choice cost him months of connection with the woman he claims to love. So going into season 4, I don't think Larry gets a free pass just because we know he and Marion are endgame. I think the show is going to make him work for it, and honestly, he should have to. If Marion really is stepping into this new identity, finding purpose through helping Dr. Kirkland and possibly pursuing something more permanent in medicine or caregiving, then Larry is going to be forced to confront a version of her that doesn't need him to feel complete. That's a scary thing for someone like Larry, who has always been used to being the one people orbit around. Watching Marion build a life with or without him is either going to humble him